Hi guys, let's learn about classes today. So to create a class, again Scala class, just keep it as class itself. Unified types. So let us say this is our new class that I'm creating, right, to learn about unified types. So the interesting factor is like whenever you want to create a class, it's not necessary that you need these blank statements. Like whether you fill it blank or whether you don't fill it blank, both are kind of same. And you can create an instance of a class. So just like in main method, right? So you can create an instance of a class, say, yeah, like val sample class, right? So is equal to say new and unified type. Okay. So as you could see, you need to use a new keyword in order to initiate a class. Right, so yeah, we can write methods and everything over here. So define, say, sample method, and yep, so you will be able to access this method. So whenever you define it over here, you will be able to access these methods in its instance. So Scala play dot sample method. So this is how you could actually create um, a new instance of a class. So let us say you want to like create a class with a constructor. So constructed in the sense, yeah, you can actually create two variables, say my first val of type int comma var second val of type int. So this is how you can even put a constructor for this. The very moment you put a constructor, these variables would automatically come. Like I just defined both first val and second val as two input parameters. Along with the method, you will be able to access them. So as you could see, it expects that those two values we have to provide, and you will be able to access those values like simple cla dot, like see the first val as well as sample cla dot second val. So this is, guys, like you will not be, so that's one interesting thing. Instead of we creating variables and create a constructor, this is how you will actually initialize a class where you can pass the parameters as the mandatory elements, and those elements will be available to you whenever you want to access it. That is one interesting thing. And yeah, like yeah, there are certain ways where if at all you want to put some default values to these variables, just like the way we are showing it here. So let us say when I declared that, my first val, second val, I just set it to 0, right? So when I'm actually not doing this, I don't actually need to set this particular value, because the value would by default would actually take it as 0. Right, so let's try in debug mode, see whether I'm getting that values or not. Let's wait for its compilation. Yeah, now see the value, second value is kind of 0, and first value is again like whatever we pass here, so which is 3. So that's it, guys. Like you can even set the default values to these particular variables, right? You could even set it over here. So and so like that it goes. All right, like whenever you initialize. Yeah, so another way of creating it, let us say I just initialized it with so like 3, right? But sorry, equal to 3. What I want to do is I just want to I just need the value for first val to be default, and the second val I would like to implement. But whenever I put this method, it always replaces the first val. So in order to make it happen, all you need to do is you specify that my second val I just want to equal into to 3. So the 3 is already there, so let's put it as 5. Right, so when you do that, when you again, let's go in debug mode. Yeah, so then that's it, like the same sample, you can actually see it over here. So second value is kind of 3 and first value is kind of, yeah, so first value is kind of 3 and second value is, so here you could even specify which parameter what value you would like to place. Right, so now let's quickly move on to the next topic, like, yeah, how to create private members. And so as you could see, what will be the things that you are defining here, so you would be able to access it, in the sense, let's say, let us say I just want to create two variables. Variable 1 of type int, by default let's put it to 0. Right, so whenever I create these two variables, I will be able to access them, like variable 1 and variable 2. So by default, everything comes as public. If at all you want to make it private, so this would be the keyword. Right, so this is how you could actually create private variables in yeah, you could even define this method as private so that it will not be accessible outside. So whenever you come here, so you will not be able to. So now let's try doing it. Sample class dot, so now you will no longer be seeing those first variable 1 and variable 2 because you define it as private. We'll learn about access clarifiers, how they work later, but now let us focus on how to write get set statements in case of getters and setters in case of in case of Scala. Right, so the way you are doing it, let us say I am creating like two variables x and y. Right, I just want to put a bound in the sense, I just want to make sure like none of these values are greater than 10. So the advantage of using getters and setters is here you can confine your variables, like what can be set and what can be get. Right, so that's the advantage of it. Now let us say I want to create x and y as properties, but I want to make sure like those values cannot be greater than 100. Right, so that's what he has done here. And guys, like we can do anything, but so for this example we are just trying to do it this way. Right, I'm just copying this because I focus on explaining it to you guys. Yeah, let's put it into our unified types. Yeah, so as you could see, first what I have done is like I created two variables and I made them as private so that it will not be available outside. As you could see, even bound is kind of out private variable so that it will not be able to exit outside. Now what I have defined is I just defined a method x, and that method I initialized the value to underscore x. Right, and similarly I defined another method x hyphen, and so what I'm specifying is it should actually take an value int. Right, so this is more of setting a value. Right, what I'm defining is I'm defining a method. This is actually equivalent to writing a yeah, so as you could see, whenever you define a method you can still do this. Right, you can, what you're saying is you just defined a method x, right, and which returns a value, this one underscore x. Since even the methods, right, are just treated as a normal set. Okay, just remove this. So whenever you click on x, this is actually a method which returns int, and it appears as if, you know, I'm able to access the value of x. As see guys, like these are the variables, underscore x and underscore y are the variables, but the way I'm accessing it is through x. Now, so these are like some interesting things. So whenever you write any method underscore, what it really implies is it is for reading a particular value or it. Now let us see how it works. Right. So whenever I have this underscore x, so what I have done is like I say same thing I have done it for y and x underscore, and I'm specifying that int value. The other reason is like yeah, but since these two are integers, so I just want to set the value of x. So this is like for setting the value. Okay, let's put it this way. This is for getting the value of x. This is for setting the value of x. What am I doing here? So here I just defined another method x bar, and here I'm just taking an input parameter. So what this represents is it represents the inline value. Right, so whenever you write x underscore, it actually takes an inline value and it sets this value to, so this is the new value, whatever I'm kind of importing. And if the new value is less than bound, then I'm setting this value. As I said, like this is the variable, right? And we could still use it. So now let us go back and see whether we could set the value, right? So sample class x, right, is equal to say 100 or say 150. Now sample, now I just created, yeah, so here I'm kind of reading the value. So let's put print statement here. Let's try doing it in debug mode so that it has to throw error because, you know, the out of bound, I mean, it should not set any value here because that's what I'm doing, like else print warning. Okay, it should actually print a warning for me if it is not actually doing it, right? So now let us play here. Okay, let's put a debug point here as well. As you could see, my x value, it is still, see the variables are still popping up. The value of it is 60, that is what you have set it here. Underscore y, since we haven't changed, the value still remain the same. Right, now let us see what will happen when I just play to the next statement. See, the underscore value is actually not getting updated because this is way beyond 150. Now let us go to console and see. So it created a warning called out of bounds. So just like the way we specified in unit statements, I'm actually printing a warning. So where is it, like printing the warning? I just defined a simple method where it returns println statement. Right? So warning out of bounds. So this is the advantage of setters and getters. Like when you put a setter, you can actually create a lot of variables. You can actually create